But even now I'm like, is that going to be enough? Like, I feel like I want more, because this film was one where it was just paced so well.
So, is this all you're doing?
It is.
Are you Old Nick?
Old Nick? You mean Satan?
Yes.
What is up? Drive By Movies here, and you are watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is James.
My name is Blaise.
And today we're checking out the follow-up from last year. This week we're checking out 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple.
And now, a leap into the unknown.
The Bone Temple continues the story of Spike as he's inducted into Jimmy Crystal's gang on the mainland. Dr. Kelson makes a discovery that could alter the world. So, James, I think this was probably one of my most hyped films coming into this year, just because coming out of last year, 28 Years Later, was a big one for both of us. And I feel like we had known that, all right, the new one's like literally coming out in less than a year. I think the original, or 28 Years Later, came out in May. So you knew like 8 months later, you're already getting to start off the year, you know, the continuation of that story. We know it's been a planned trilogy, but what did you think of 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple?
Yeah, I was 100% hyped going into this movie. The one last year, Danny Boyle at the helm, was one of my favorite movies of the year, and felt like a nice return to form for Danny Boyle. Not in terms of coming back to a franchise that he helped start, but just in terms of just like, I wasn't as big and like high from his more current movies. Like, it's been a while since, I guess, Slumdog Millionaire being like the last movie where I was like, oh my gosh, I love his movies. But yeah, just in between that and 20 Years Later, like, I just missed the old Danny Boyle and like one of the filmmakers that made me fall in love with movies. And here we are with Nia DaCosta taking over on the helms, and like, I was worried that it might have a different vibe. And you know, there's definitely stylistic and editing choices made that are slightly different from not the first movie, but just the last movie. But still, like, I thought Nia brought some of the best performances. Again, though, after last year, I was brought to tears by how good those performances were. But once again, this time, just seeing Ralph Fiennes and his relationship with this character of Samson, I thought was just like so moving and just breathtaking. It's a fantastic follow-up. Not as good as the last one in my personal opinion, but I love to see that so many people are more welcoming now towards this movie, and hoping that we still get that third movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, yeah, like I said, this is like probably my most hyped movie of this year so far. And it definitely delivered. I felt like coming out of this, I saw reviews or coming into it, I was already seeing like positive reviews. I'm like, hell yeah, this is exactly what I was hoping for. I really love Nia DaCosta's Candyman back in, that was like during the pandemic, I feel like, or barely when the movie theaters are kind of opening back up. But I had watched that home and loved it and wish I had seen it in the theater. So getting to see, you know, her version of this of 28 Years Later, her take on that story was interesting. I thought that this thing was just covered in metaphor that was totally awesome. It was kind of like how that's probably the main takeaways that I loved about Candyman. So seeing that in 28 Years Later, for me, I don't know where this does lie. I'm really high on it right now. I don't know if it's better than 28 Years Later, but being a follow-up or like a sequel, it definitely gets, you know, some major points in my book, because usually I feel like the first one's always gonna, you know, be the better version, but I feel like this delivered in many ways that there are things I loved about the first one, that this was kind of like this was a different take on it, an advancement of the story. Obviously, you see more of it. Like, Jimmy Crystal's barely in 28 Years Later. He's just at the ending, and that was a lot of people's issue with the first film, was that he felt kind of out of place in that. And it feels like everything that people disliked about that ending of the first one, with him appearing in the Power Rangers kind of as sequence, is like, you know, dialed back. They don't really have anything like that. You have Nia DaCosta's take, as opposed to Danny Boyle kind of throwing paint at the canvas, which it feels like a lot of 28 Years Later was, and that was a lot of the stuff that I loved about it artistically, where this is, you know, like you said, more the actor's piece. There's some great performances in here, and she was able to extract some of the best performances from some of the best actors in the game right now.
Yeah, Fiennes has been noted as one of the best actors of all time. I'm not sure if he got an Oscar for his role in Schindler's List, but just, when you have roles like that, and, maybe not Voldemort not being an Oscar-worthy performance, but, still a performance, though, that'll be remembered forever as, like, a crazy villain. And then just coming off of Conclave, he didn't win an award for that, I believe. Well, not an Oscar, at least. But just, like, going into horror, you wouldn't expect to get one of his best performances, but still here we are once again getting a fantastic performance from him, and just like how haunting and just like so easygoing he is within this like crazy world. Like, who would have thought this is the way we would have went into this franchise? Because like I think like now that people were so disappointed with the direction they went with the last one, that made them more open and I guess accepting towards this movie, because this movie still goes not off the rails or off the wall. It just goes still into a weird direction that I wouldn't have expected. Like, the first one's accepting death. This one has a lot of more religious subtles and metaphors into it that I was like really loving, just like trying to break apart while watching the movie. And this is one of the few times in a movie where it's not a short movie. I think it's like 100 minutes long, but I was just like, this was too short. Like, it went by so quick. There were no dull moments in this movie. Like, I was waiting for the climactic sequence to end or to happen and stuff. But when we got there, I was like, surely there's still like 40 minutes left. And then after that, we get this interesting epilogue at the end that I didn't expect also. And so, yeah, just this is one of the few movies that you will ever hear me or you say on this show where it's just like, I actually thought it might have been a little too short. Not that it actually was too short. It felt just right. But just I could have used more just because that's how enthralled I was with this world.
Yeah, it just felt like the pacing was so well done, because there was like I was trying to find a moment that I could run to the restroom, like and I was literally running, and I ran to the restroom, and then that restroom was closed, so I had to run to the opposite side of the theater. I was so pissed. I'm like, dude, this would happen in the movie where there's literally no like slow scenes to where you could run to the restroom. Maybe when Samson's hitting the trank, it feels like that would be like the time where I could have run to the restroom. But yeah, it just feels like I don't feel like I missed anything, but in the sense like the film, like when it gets to that epilogue, like I was like, there could be another 40 minutes left. I only knew it was the end of the movie because I had heard like, they said this before, like honestly, when they were talking on the press junket for the first 20 years later, they were saying like, Cillian Murphy appears at the end of the second film. So as soon as he appeared, I'm like, all right, the film's over. But honestly, I feel like it could have been another 40 minutes and I would have been totally pleased. But I'm glad they'll be saving his story for the next film. But even now, I'm like, is that going to be enough? Like, I feel like I want more, because this film was one where it was just paced so well. And thinking about other films that were paced so well, like last year's, like for me, Avatar Fire and Ash, I felt like was constantly moving, but it was like the action that was kind of pacing the movie to make that 3-hour runtime not feel like 3 hours. But this was one where it just felt like the pacing was all in these performances and just how they just brought you into that movie, and like they were so enthralling. And yeah, this is one where I've seen people like kind of say they dislike this movie and they're taking scenes out of context and posting them online, and I'm like, yeah, if I just saw like a random scene of like Kelson and Samson dancing, like that would be weird. But when it comes to the context of the movie, like that's not the first scene you see of them. There's like 3 or 4 scenes before that to get to that point, to make things that if you had just seen that scene, it seems so unbelievable and honestly unrealistic. But this script was so well written. The performances really sell these points of like you said, this is not anywhere where you would have thought that a zombie film would go, let alone 28 days later, like where the franchise was going to go.
Yeah, and with that, like, I kind of want to go into like mild spoilers into it too. But yeah, those moments though with Samson, I thought were the best and stuff, and just like where I like. We were talking about how like I forgot what movie it was last year where I was like kind of saying like, even though it's not like a hangout movie, it just has those vibes in certain sequences. I think it was Train Dreams I was bringing that up with. But just with this movie too, just I mean, there's a lot of back and forth. There's 2 stories going on with I mean, I was a little disappointed that Spike took like kind of a back to, or like he kind of went like, was kind of pushed to the side in this movie, but not a whole lot. It is still his story and his like confusion and finding himself and just like fear of just like getting, adopted by this gang too. So, he's still central to the story, but overall it still focuses more on Jack O'Connell's character of Jimmy. And then, of course, Ralph Fiennes' character as well, too, with in his story with Samson. But with spoilers, though, just, again, never would have expected, us to find a cure so quickly. But, it's not, I still don't even know if that's something that we can explore in a future movie. Samson, is he still fully cured even after fighting all those infected? And I'm sure he got a lot of blood into his mouth then and there too, but still though, I have all these questions yet. I was still amazed by what we got and what we got to see when it was just so unexpected.
Yeah, I don't know if it was even he was cured. I know that I've seen them talk a lot on the press junket that there's another level of infected that they haven't explored yet, and they were going to explore it in this movie, which I'm pretty sure that was just essentially Samson coming to terms with the infection. He's kind of coming out of that haze a little bit, but we don't get enough at the end to really confirm my kind of thoughts or ideas. Really, it would really just be, there's nothing to confirm that essentially, but it does feel like he's almost not he's cured, but he's just a new evolution of how the alphas were an evolution of the infection, and that's how the infection evolved. He's almost this new evolution of human being that's also infected but can't get reinfected, because we do see the zombies, they would throw up their infected blood into people's mouth and they'd immediately get infected. And we see that in a scene we've seen it in every movie, but we see it again in a scene in the beginning of this movie. And then it does happen to Samson on the train, but he's still there at the end, kind of. So we get the sense that he isn't reinfected almost. I don't know if he's just a new thing. I don't know really, he's not a human. He's not totally cured. He's just this new thing that can't get reinfected to be fully raged out, but he's still it was interesting. I like to look more into that. I honestly think I need to watch this movie again to pick up some of the small details like that.
Yeah, it's nice to have speculation again, just because you and I, when we're younger, finding our love for film. I just remember going to, our local AMC movie theater, Mission Valley Mall, seeing a movie and speculating after whether it was getting dessert ice cream or going to In-N-Out after, just all of our group of friends just talking about what happened, where can we go with the sequel, what can we expect and stuff too. It's nice to have this kind of movie again, just because we get horror films throughout the year, but this feels like a horror film for adults, and horror, it's a good water cooler movie where I imagine people who do see it are going to have those conversations during coffee breaks or cigarette breaks and just be so what's up with this? Where do you think we go from here? And also just wanted to give a shout out to I've grown up always listening to emo metalcore music and stuff too. I wouldn't say I'm a proper metalhead, but I'm not the biggest fan of Iron Maiden, but that is probably one of the coolest needle drops in cinema history, I guess.
Yeah, that was a sick scene. And it's funny because before even that scene and seeing the poster, you see Kelson, he looks like he has the rage virus, and that honestly felt such a spoiler when I see that on the poster. I'm dude, this is a spoil. He's gonna get infected at the end of the movie. That's the climax, and that is the climax of the movie, but that's not exactly what happens. So I like that that it feels like they spoiled it, but then when I watched it, I'm all right, they didn't spoil it, but they did it was a red herring almost, in a way that he looks infected on the poster. Yeah, I have to say this is easily this is my favorite movie of the year so far. But that's easy to say because it's the only new movie I've seen this year so far in theaters. But I think this thing will hopefully hold strong, and I hope that the follow up and the conclusion to this trilogy comes out sooner than 3 years later. I hope they get to work on that so that maybe at most we get to wait 2 years, because this is an awesome trilogy that I feel came out of nowhere because they never made the original trilogy. We had 28 weeks later, but there was never a 28 months later, and we just randomly got 28 years later, and it was a full trilogy, and it's going to get concluded. They've announced that the final film is going to be made, and Danny Boyle is coming back to direct. So I look forward to finally concluding this trilogy, and I just love the way that they took the franchise, and this emotional journey that Spike's been on has just been a pleasure to watch.
100%. And you know, if I'm curious for people who disliked it, like, you know, leave a comment down below, let us know what your thoughts on the movie was, just because I'm curious, like, you know, what really like was the reason, just because this is something that like is getting critically acclaimed, but just like there are still a lot of haters towards it, but I just haven't had those conversations. So I'm curious like what people are disliking about these movies. But yeah, I for one agree it is the best movie I've seen so far this year. What a way to start 2026. Yeah, and I just look forward and cannot wait. I'm excited to be stoked on a franchise again. So yeah, great way to help support the show. If you haven't, go see the movie. Let us know what you thought about it in the comments down below.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all latest updates.
And speaking of updates, you can catch all our social media links down below. We have Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and we also have our own personal letterbox accounts. That'll be it for this week. Tune in next week for a brand new video.